Let's do a camera comparison between the iPhone 11, 12 and 13 and see if there are any major differences between these very similar camera setups. Let's start with some portrait shots. Now all three phones take really good portrait shots. In this first shot, all phones are almost perfect except for some misses with the edge detection. Interestingly enough, the iPhone 13 misses near the face, which I think is the most visible area. The iPhone 11 and 12 miss near the hands and the fingers, and that I think can be excused to some extent. I am amazed by how well the iPhone 11 still holds up. One area where the iPhone 13 is slightly ahead is with the gradual blur effect. It adds a nice touch to the photo. The 12 for some reason doesn't have that at all, and the iPhone 11 seems to have that even though it's very minor. The next shot is where the iPhone 12 has that gradual blur effect while the 11 does not, so basically it is a hit or miss. The 11 and 12 also struggle with the edge detection, specifically around the strings of the jacket. The 13 once again messes the blur around my face. In a slightly closer portrait shot, all iPhones struggle with the strings. There are also some weird misses around the face. One thing I noticed in these portrait shots is that the iPhone 13 is making my face brighter as compared to the other two. The 11 and 12 appear to be more true to life. In this portrait shot, I do prefer the iPhone 13 as it has managed to take the better shot of all these iPhones. The blue isn't washing out the full image and instead we get a much better and cleaner looking shot. In this last photo, the iPhone 11 failed to capture the portrait shot even though it was at a similar distance to the other two iPhones. Overall, each phone seems to do a really good job at portrait shots but do miss in a few key aspects. And I can't really pick a winner in this case. Next up, we have some non-portrait shots. This is where these phones produce photos that are very identical. The colors and the dynamic range are almost similar and accurate on these iPhones. I don't have a personal preference and either phone is doing a great job with the subject and the background. Although the iPhone 11 is crushing the shadows a little, I do however like the higher black levels of the iPhone 11 as well. The iPhone 13, just like in portrait shots, is making my skin tone a tiny bit brighter than I would like. The iPhone 12 is in between the iPhone 11 and 13. It is taking a well-balanced shot that I would prefer over the other two. Next up, we have some random daytime shots taken with the main sensor. From what I've noticed, the iPhone 13 is doing slightly better in some photos with the color reproduction, but that in no way means the iPhone 11 and 12 are bad. The iPhone 11 is favoring slightly cooler tones when compared to the other two, which are on the warm side. Just like portrait shots, I don't have a personal preference with these photos. All phones produce excellent looking pictures with accurate colors and dynamic range. The iPhone 13 is slightly more saturated and that might be pleasing for some people. Honestly, if I remove the labeling, some of the shots are basically indistinguishable. Also, I did take a trip to Niagara Falls to take some of these shots for this video, so a sub to the channel would be fantastic. Next up are some ultra-wide shots. Probably the most similar sensor on these phones are the ultra-wide and the front camera. Hence, the ultra-wide shots are an exact copy of each other, which is to say the shots look very similar with good color accuracy and dynamic range. There are minor differences in terms of white balance, but nothing that's too major. The ultra-wide camera is due for an upgrade in the iPhone series and I hope Apple does it with the iPhone 16, though I highly doubt the regular 16 will be getting an upgraded ultra-wide sensor. Anyways, that's a topic for another video. Next up, we have selfies. As with the ultrawide, the front camera is copy and paste in these iPhones. These shots are very similar, but like in my previous camera comparison between the 11, 12 and 15, the 12 once again is doing a better job with the edge detection around sunglasses. The 11 and 13 do seem to struggle in this area. However, to my pleasant surprise, the iPhone 11 is making the colors a little more saturated compared to the other two, and I actually do prefer it in these photos. The blue color of the denim jacket looks really nice in the iPhone 11 shots. Finally, let's take a look at the video from the main and front camera. The video quality is as expected, pretty great. The colors and dynamic range are on point. iPhones have had great video quality for a long time and that shows with these iPhones. Even these 2 to 4 year old iPhones are capturing amazing videos. The iPhone 13 does have a slight edge over the other two with its sensor shift stabilization, and that does make the footage look better stabilized than the 11 and 12. The iPhone 13 also has cinematic mode, which is absent from the 11 and 12. The 11 and 12 are still great for such old camera systems. Honestly, I don't think stabilization and cinematic video are that big of an advantage, so take that as you will. The front camera is equally capable in all phones. The details are very good with great dynamic range. The overall quality is very similar on all phones. Now that's to be expected since these phones have basically identical front cameras. Just like the ultrawide, the front camera is also due for an upgrade as well. After all these daytime shots and video comparison, it's time to take a look at few nighttime shots. I am someone who rarely takes nighttime photos, but I did manage to capture a few for this video. Since the iPhone 11 does not have night mode for the ultrawide, so I only took one shot to compare these phones. In other shots, all phones do pretty well. Ironically, I took a selfie and the iPhone 12 had a better output each time compared to the other two. The 11 is not expected to do well as it doesn't have night mode in the front camera, but the iPhone 13 just couldn't seem to take a decent shot even though I tried so many times. In other shots, the phones are once again very similar. All three phones suffer from lens flare. The iPhone 13 is producing slightly punchier colors than the other two, and I did prefer these shots more. The nighttime video is also similar in all three iPhones. Since the sensors are almost similar, so is the video output. Once again, the iPhone 13 has an advantage with its sensor shift stabilization, so the video is stable and less grainier as compared to the other two. The 11 is the worst of the bunch. And that's it for this camera comparison. As evident from this video, these camera systems are basically identical and have very few differences. While one of these phones might look good in certain areas, the other phone seems to do better in other areas. If a good camera system is all you want in an iPhone and nothing else matters, you could get the iPhone 11 or 12 and save some money. The iPhone 13 has minor advantages, but nothing that warrants you to spend the extra money just for the sake of good cameras. But if you want a well-rounded phone along with a good camera, well then that's a different story altogether. Let me know what you think about this video, subscribe, and I'll catch you soon.